my little queens of hell, to
What to watch now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are closing out The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina with Season 2, Episode 9, Chapter 20, The Mephisto Waltz, the grand finale! Yay! We made it! Holy shit! This is how you motherfucking do a season finale. This was so good. I love that the series didn't peak with, like, you know, wide-eyed Jesus, crazy looking Sabrina floating in the air. That wasn't even the grand finale. And I loved that. I also didn't mind that there was like 3 million different types of way they were trying to take down the Dark Lord. That just kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that be kind of anticlimactic that there was all this buildup for 2 seasons and then they like kind of just got him in one go? Doesn't really make sense. But before we get into this, I will have recorded and uploaded my first secret Patreon podcast episode. And you totally need to become a supporter today. In fact, I would love if you would. If you wouldn't mind, please become a Patreon supporter today, because this first episode is going to be all about witchcraft, because I thought, perfect. I know people love witch shows as much as I do, especially the ones on Netflix. And, of course, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is new. People might have an interest in witchcraft now. And I am here to offer you a lot of answers and kind of skip forward with information. And I can kind of guide you and show you, like, this is what you kind of need to know. And then this is how you can kind of look up all the information, which is great. So I'm going to be talking about, like, what is witchcraft? What's the difference between Wiccas? How do they specifically go about casting spells? What do different popular things in witchcraft actually mean? And do people actually use it today in witchcraft? And before you're like, whoa, what are you talking about? Witchcraft's kind of like werewolves. No. I'm not sitting here telling you werewolves are real. Witches are real. In fact, they're super common. I'm telling you right now, they're not always people. In fact, most of the time, they're not people dressed in all black who are very public about it. A lot of them are in the quote-unquote broom closet and are just, you know, your peers that work at the cubicle or sit next to you in school. You would have no idea they're witches. They're way more common than you know. Trust me. In fact, actually, little small short story. I was at a coffee... It's like a punk coffee surfer shop the other day, and I was casually talking to the girl. She was just working behind the counter. Again, didn't look like a witch. And she started talking to me, and something just kind of the way she was talking, it just clicked to me. And I said, "Are you a witch?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, I fucking knew it! See, they're everywhere. Anyways, so if you would love to hear all that in-depth stuff, it's super fun and interesting, whether you're into it or not. But either way, come check it out. Please become a Patreon supporter today. The link is in the description below. So anyways, this episode was so motherfucking good. I continue to love Lilith so much. I really appreciate that they've kind of flipped her story around and made me favor her. Now keep in mind, I really like what they've done with Sabrina. This is like on a side note. I like that she keeps growing from her mistakes. As Lilith said, she's plucky to the very end. She's just all in all, like an ideal person that I would personally want to be friends with, know, or look up to. I really, really like the way she goes about handling things, especially when it comes to a verbal conversation. She doesn't get overly upset unless she really needs to, and when she does not, like, let down. And she's often, like, I feel like she's learned from her past mistakes and comes into more fights with a better planned and more education. So it shows that, like, because, like, I think we all felt the same thing initially in the first season of, like, oh my god, Sabrina, you keep making these dumb mistakes. And you could see that initially as bad writing, but it wasn't. She was 16, just turned 16. I mean, at this point, she's more closer to 17. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, she just turned 16. She's gonna, this is her first time battling the Dark Lord or any supernatural entity. you can understand the, hiccups along the way. So we start off this episode with Miss Wardwell's or Lilith's story about what it was like for her. As Zelda hinted to in another episode, this girl was a survivalist. She went through a fucking lot. I mean, she's got a lot in common with Sabrina, except she went through a lot more of a repercussion for her choices. But think about this. She was given this Eden, right? She was with Adam. She was Adam's first wife. And she's given this Eden. She's idyllically probably told that she's going to be the beginning of mankind. She's kind of being put up on a pedestal and all that jazz. And she pretty much had what metaphorically everything she could want. But she asked herself honestly and was like, I can see I'm going to be controlled. I can see I'm not going to be given all the information. I can see that my life will only be ideal if I follow this one path, this other person's path. And she made the courageous decision to say, no, that's not good enough. I'd rather travel the wastelands instead of accepting this. And that's bold as hell. Holy shit. Like, if that's not the ultimate girl power, I don't know what is. So Lilith makes the decision to leave, and she does not, and it kind of makes sense. It makes me wonder if Lucifer Morningstar started his first act in deceiving by purposely not showing up to her until she was kind of disoriented from traveling the wastelands. Like, she would have been, as again Zelda said, she would have been a survivalist. She would have been pretty disoriented, more susceptible and malleable to kindness and manipulation. By the way, pretty sneaky and fucked up of the quote-unquote false god of making just one part of the earth look really pretty and then just kind of let the rest of it look like hell until he needed to expand off of that idea. Kind of feels already pretty deceitful. I could understand how she's like, wait a minute, something feels wrong about this. But also, I kind of like the idea of maybe instead of, because I know the whole like Bible lore is that he made Earth in like 7 days. And I'm wondering what if he just picked some, blank rock and was like, I could work with this. I could add a little bit of grass. I'll give it a little bit of ozone. Or maybe there was already even ozone, so it made his job even easier. Maybe he's a celestial being. I mean, technically Lucifer is a celestial being, that technically he made, but maybe he's a bigger celestial being that made a smaller celestial being. Just saying, just throwing out some ideas out there if we want to get wackadoo with this. Anyways, so Lilith tells her story where she's like, I'm wandering the wasteland, and then he showed up. And by the way, they could not have picked a better Dark Lord. Holy shit. His cute little naked butt, he's handsome, looks strong, but there's something kind of vulnerable about him. He truly did, for me, if you told me he was an angel, and I always forget that always gets kind of skimmed over, but he is an angel. That's the whole idea. He's a fallen angel. He really had that kind of warrior, angelic type of look to him. So I thought they did an amazing casting. Also, he was just great at delivering a sinister vibe, controlling, aggressive when he needed to be. So well done on the casting. They had their cute little love fest. He was really nice and kind to her. She was, I still am a little confused. Was she the first witch by default? And that's how the power got bestowed down? Or did he give it to her? Maybe, and this is just a theory, maybe initially it was the false god that gave her her abilities, and then when he saw she had a little too much power, when he made Woman 2.0, he was like, we're going to take away those powers. That didn't work out for me. I'm taking away those powers. So that's just a food for thought there. But I gotta stop saying that. I'm saying it way too much. Okay, mental note, gonna stop saying that. So, Lilith was in a position where she's being treated really kindly and he's nice, and it shows the development of a bad relationship. And over time, his form changed the nastier he became, and he became this creepy goat man thing. And I'm surprised she still stood by him, but I think she was in a position where he wasn't going to let her out either way. Interestingly, she didn't go further into her story how she became the mother of demons and how she chose to create actual demons. It's interesting. I've always heard in like other supernatural type of lore. Again, I'm not well versed in the Bible if this is already in the Bible, but that like it was Lucifer who made all the little demons. So I kind of like the idea of maybe she did and he was using that to his advantage. Maybe he doesn't have all the abilities and powers. Maybe witches and warlocks are stronger than he allows them to believe. Another interesting thing I thought they developed is when Lilith says one of the biggest lies he tells is that he's a god. He's not a god. He's just another supernatural creature. I mean, technically he's an angel, but that being said, he's not a god. It's a whole different ballpark when you're a god. Therefore, he can bleed. Also, when they said that he became nastier, and therefore he became like the goat man that he looks like, I kind of think that's a beautiful theory for Dorian Gray. Because again, if you're not familiar with Dorian Gray, the whole fun story behind that is that he was given eternal youth. He made a deal with the devil. And I like that he is still alive in this world, and he's a warlock, and he's a bartender. That's so fun. But as he became nastier or did terrible deeds, his soul, burned more in hell or whatever, his painting reflected that. And he can't look at the painting because if he looks at the painting, he will take upon all of that aging all at once. So I liked that metaphor that maybe Dorian Gray's fate was inspired by Lucifer's own story. So, pretty interesting. Sabrina runs in, gives the aunties the DL. By the way, they are already up Schitt's Creek because, I don't know if you remember, but Hilda just recently killed a councilman. I'm sure that's going to be hot drama in the next season because it's kind of something they skimmed over very quickly. By the way, I'm still kind of pissed. We have yet to know what truly happened with the whole boy dying thing that never got fucking answered. And we know what happened to Luke, but we still don't know what Luke was being sent out for. I'm sure maybe that's going to be a really big thing they were achieving, and it's going to be a great payoff for another season, and that's fine. But holy mother of God, can you just fucking tell me? I want to know. No one's ever asking. Everyone's like, oh, Harvey and Sabrina, Nick and Sabrina. I'm literally sitting there going, yeah, but like, what about this? True crime podcast who? So Sabrina comes in and interrupts. They're already up Schitt's Creek, basically, and tells them about the situation. Very straightforward, as I love how she does. With, is it Ambrose by her side? With Nick by her side? Whatever, doesn't matter. She comes in, gives the information, and I love Zelda's response. She's like, to be his child bride? You're too young. I forbid it. But honestly, as comical and cute as it is, I don't think even if she was old enough, I don't think she'd think it's okay either way. You can understand that. And I love that she's willing to take down the Dark Lord. We finally got Zelda back. I bet you she was really jogged from her beliefs with just Father Blackwood manipulating her like he did. I think she kind of is now finally turning around. Because remember, they've walked this line the entire season, or seasons, as witches, where they both fear and love the power of their Dark Lord. And finally, things are getting pulled back. They no longer are for him. And I do respect that they're quick to know, like, okay, what I'm saying is, in other situations when people are promised something and they learn that promise isn't real, they're so kind of deep in abusive relationship with it, and they're so kind of around the other person's finger, they'll just keep sticking around and believing it, and they're not sure why they're doing it anymore. I'm sure there's, like, professional names, like, syndrome-wise, but as soon as witches realize the true plan of the Dark Lord, they're like, wait a minute. This is not what you promised us. Now, Lilith, unfortunately, does not get that luxury because while she admits he is not a god, she is in a position where she keeps being, attacked and manipulated, and she never sees, like, she's been trying to fight back for some time now, and it just keeps not working to her favor. So it's not like she hasn't tried. This is the thing, though. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I have a Twitter in the bio below. Have they at any point said in their Bible, we'll call it the Dark Bible, if like there was any goal ultimately with the Dark Lord. Like, what is his goal? Because everyone was decently surprised that his ultimate goal is to control mortals, humans, and witches and warlocks alike, which is it is a big deal. I mean, I wonder how their perspective would have changed if they got to be on the winning side and also be controlling mortals. Maybe some of them would be okay with that. But I kind of got the idea that most don't. Like, while witches and warlocks do think they're better than mortals, a lot of them have vulnerably expressed that they can't be close to them. How can they be close to someone or anybody knowing they're going to outlive them? That a human's life is but a blip in a witch's, because we don't have confirmation how long they live, but they do live like a pretty decently long time, like several hundred years. So everyone gets together, including the mortal friends. I'm very happy to announce. I'm loving that Harvey, Theo, and Roz just kicked some fucking ass in this episode. I really liked that their characters gained even more of a purpose in Sabrina's life, because they're a lot more capable, and now with Roz's abilities, what Theo knows and is starting to experience on his own. I mean, wait, did I say Theo? I meant Harvey. But I mean, Theo himself is like the cheerleader of the team, and that is extremely valuable, because at times when they've even given up hope in Sabrina herself, Theo's like, wake the fuck up, people, let's not lose course. And that sometimes is the most valuable thing you can have in crucial situations. So Sabrina's like, I loved when Nick tried to kind of both half insult them, but in a way he was making a good point that they do seem kind of powerless. Sabrina's like, listen, we do not have time, honey. We need to get shit done. And she gives them the ability to be like, listen, Gates of Hell, real thing. Apparently in Greendale, because I love the background story of Greendale, that is where the Dark Lord fell, which is what everything's like, it's like a great source of power kind of left over. Makes sense why a lot of witches would congregate there. Actually, in American Gods, they talked about the idea that roadside attractions and other things, other big places, like if places of power exist, people tend to want to build something around it, which I love that kind of background story and lore of the whole thing. And this makes me feel it's similar. By the way, does it make you laugh that Riverdale's like a town over? It's like, sorry, Riverdale, you don't get no magic or fun stuff. Meanwhile, Prudence is trying to make it up to her sisters. We haven't really seen their relationship in a while, and apparently that has added up. That Dorcas and Agatha have basically kind of severed ties with Prudence, understandably, because they feel upset that they've been kind of abandoned by Prudence and her pursuit for her namesake, but also, like, her dad keeps putting her in positions where I bet you they're looking sideways at their sister, like, girl, this is everything you're against. What the hell? Like, we do not know you. But they quickly come around when she's like, you want to kill my dad with me? And they're like, hell yeah, girl. And I love when she pulls out a giant silk red thread on like an enormous thimble, or I don't know what it's called, I guess spool. And all I could think was like, is this casual? Does everyone have a giant red spool? Is that just like a common thing when you're a witch? And do you go to the witch store and next to the mogweed and the bee pollen, which is a thing, you can get little crunchy bee pollen and stuff like that, and basil, all that good stuff, you just have a giant red spool. So they try to kill her dad, but unfortunately are interrupted when the Dark Lord makes his way to the Unseen Academy and wants to talk to Father Blackwood. So he interrupts Prudence. By the way, I love that Prudence is shitting herself thinking she's getting caught in this situation, and he doesn't even realize he's being basically casted upon. It's like, dude, honey, remember red spool's super common in your world? You see it around your statue? Not a good sign. So he summons her and they talk to the Dark Lord. And this is one of the ultimate paybacks. This kind of makes me forgive the whole writing staff of Chilling Adventures of Sabrina with the whole bullshit Father Blackwood being such a upstanding villain. I was getting very tired of that. That type of trope is very boring and annoying, not only for me, but I would object a lot of people. That's why a lot of people find those type of shows very tiring. That includes superhero shows. Most people want to watch superhero shows for the connections and the powers. I don't think they really care about the villains unless the villains are really fun on their own. This is just my opinion, but I don't know, like, do you kind of agree? So they this all paid off because the Dark Lord is pretty much like, you're gonna have to worship Sabrina, and he gets pissed, and the Dark Lord just kind of laughs at him. It was such a great payoff to see him get so mad because we know what that represents to him. And I love that when he tries to be like, oh, I'm changing. It's instead of Church of the Night, it's Church of Judas, which he forgets to leave out that it would technically be named after his son. And the Dark Lord, like, you think in this moment he would either fight for the fellow witches, but in fact, he doesn't give a shit about witches, warlocks, anyone. All he cares about is that he's like, honey, you suck. And I love his comment where he's like, I knew Judas. He's like, you are no Judas. That's like the ultimate, like, it's like you know what it makes me think of? This is like a really weird comparison. But if you were a Flavor of Love fan, or any of that stuff, there's an infamous line when, this is when New York was on it, and I think it was, I can't think of her name. She had enormous eyes, and whenever she would blink, they would play that little sound with the bike pedal thing, the little, you know what I'm talking about? At one point, she said, people say I look like Beyonce. And even then, this was like, God knows, like a long time ago, like 10 years ago or longer, 15 years ago. So Beyonce was still a very big deal then. She's had a long fucking career. And they all are like, Beyonce? Are you kidding me? Because even then, Beyonce was gorgeous. So it makes me kind of compare the two in that way. Sorry, Father Blackwood, you are just no Beyonce. And at that moment, he takes her into the Church of Night. And he lies about what the Dark Lord has told them. Prudence is even giving a little side face to her sisters when the sister's looking at her for reassurance, and she's giving a little head shake like, no, he did not condone that. The Dark Lord did not say that. He is telling lies. So when he tells the lies, he gets them to all take unholy communion. But it was a sick ploy. Unbeknownst to Prudence, he's poisoned everyone because he's a fucking coward. It only makes sense. He can't just simply run away. He has to take people down. That's how controlling is. If he can't control you, he doesn't want you to exist at all. And he's trying to pack up. I'm surprised he even wants to take Prudence with him, but it kind of makes sense. At this point, he needs any little lackey minions he can. And his two probably most dedicated minions in the future can't even like walk. His two other biological children. When he's trying to escape, Prudence basically finally is like, I'm done with you. You're fucked up. I'm not down with your shit. I'm gonna kill you. Now, when she leaves in this moment and says she's going to hunt him down, at first, when I first watched this, I had to think about it. But I was like, are you kidding me? She could have killed him right there. I mean, like, I'm not against the idea of her going after him and chasing him down. That seems like fun. But, like, come on, that's a bit of shitty writing. You're better than that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I hold you to a higher standard in the highest of compliments. But then I realized, it actually makes sense she wouldn't kill him right away in that moment, because think about it. This is Father Blackwood. He is a lot older than Prudence. All these witches are Sabrina's age. They're all pretty new at their abilities and knowledge. Maybe if she had done something in that moment, she could have gotten killed. We don't know what protection spells he might even have prepared in his office. Because again, I've talked about this before, that one of the things I love about witches, especially in supernatural shows, they have to be prepared. They don't always have the ability. Sometimes their powers are slower. They're more based on like herbology and charms. So you have to be ready in advance. So that's a plausible reason that she would want to wait. So she's like, I'm letting you know, bitch. I'm not afraid to tell you, but like, I'm gonna go prepare. I'm gonna go get ready and I'm gonna hunt you down. And I'm surprised he didn't kill her in that moment. But again, I think he was so startled. He's so shook up by everything that's happened. He's just trying to get out of there. Now, She doesn't learn the whole poisoning thing until after she talks to her dad, and she runs into church and she's devastated. Because again, no matter what ups and downs she's had with Ambrose and the Spellman family and different things like that, she has always been very dedicated. I mean, even more than when she found out her dad was her dad and she was trying to get his name, she's been extremely dedicated to her Church of Night. And she's devastated to see all her friends and other followers be poisoned. So she cries, brings her... I was crying, I gotta be honest with you. I was very sad at the idea of the weird sisters dying. I was like, no, I love Prudence, but like, no, she needs her gang. So she gets her sisters in there. She goes to Spellman's, and they then go from... Because at this point, by the way, we're gonna get to it, but Sabrina's been summoned, so they're just kind of sitting and waiting and freaking out of this matter. So they go in and basically are teleporting in and out, getting as many witches and wizards as they can to potentially save them. But it's a poison, it's acting fast. We don't know how long they've been sitting there being poisoned. Some of them might die. I like that the first two people they grab, other than the Weird Sisters, were the first two people Sabrina resurrected. I don't know if Zelda and Hilda have learned about that specific resurrection yet, but I'm sure they're like, Sabrina just saved them, let's not let her down and let them die again. And I'm sure Melvin and Elspeth are like, fuck, we've had a week. They better be best friends for life after they've both shared double, saved from death experiences. Fun fact. This is just a fun fact. My grandma's like crazy religious. She's very nice and she doesn't push that on anyone, but she's like a firm believer in her faith. And she has died 3 times. 3 fucking times. Like full on. Pronounced dead, was dead a couple minutes, and somehow fucking came back to life. If that's not insane, I mean, like, I don't believe, like, I don't mean to, like, step on any stones. I'm very much like, you do you, boo. But I don't personally believe in God, but I also have the belief that, like, I don't have any proof God isn't real, so, like, if you want to believe in God, go for it, whatever. But, like, if you believe in God, no one can tell you otherwise that it isn't real. When you come back to life, can you not even fathom that level of faith? That's, it's just crazy. I'm glad she's still alive, is what I'm trying to say. Anyways, going back to the whole Sabrina thing, while Prudence is, everyone's coming together and saving the kids. By the way, I really love that Prudence and Ambrose had a beautiful makeup session. That also brought me to tears a little bit, that sweetness. Because, remember, I was just a couple episodes saying that I loved that Luke was kind of out of the picture at that moment, and that Ambrose and Prudence were hitting it off. They had a similar flavor, both in sexuality towards each other, but I don't know, like, while they are very different in personalities, there's something about them that works well, even just as friends. So I kind of was like, yeah, in any way, shape, or form, could they please have more time together? And, well, they're going to have a lot of time together. We're going to get to that. But that emotional moment, and I think Ambrose said it beautifully, like, he could have been really mad at her and been like, oh, you come crawling back now. But instead, he was like, we were both deceived. Because Ambrose was. That's how it first started. We were both deceived by him, and they more focused on the trauma they experienced. That's why I love the writing of this show. It really skips over tropes that I'm afraid they're going to have and surprises me time and time again, and honestly gives a lot of great life lessons. It is more about the trauma you experienced rather than the petty jealousy or revenge they could have towards each other. Anyway, so now we get Sabrina. So she gets summoned the first time. And Miss Wardwell brings her in very bitterly because she's just like, fuck, I tried to beat him. What can I do? And she makes it clear that she did want to be the queen of hell, but it's just, what can she do? The Dark Lord wants her to be him, to be Sabrina. So she's complying to that. And we get 2 really big reveals that are pivotal and disgusting. Do you not hear in your head that vine? Disgusting! What is it? So Sabrina talks to the Dark Lord, and one of the first big reveals she needs to know is, why did my dad do this? Was this his plan for me all along? And it turns out the Dark Lord is her dad. Ew! So gross! So disgusting! Because, again, I'm gonna keep saying this, I do not condone incest. But I did make the tad bit gross, but the point that with the whole Father Blackwood situation, sometimes it's a voluntary decision, and while it's still gross and people should not do that, at least there's a sense of like a choice in the matter. That is what they wanted. The disgusting thing with Father Blackwood is that he was going to force his children to be together. And when I thought that this show, which by the way, at this point, if you're like 13, you probably should not be watching this show. Personally, I don't give a shit. I watched like really dark stuff when I was really young. I turned out fine. Or did I? No, just kidding. But this show kind of basically confirms that it gets even more intense in that level. They keep crossing lines in a beautiful way. So when I thought that whole just idea or discussion that Father Blackwood had for his kids was like already over the top of just being like, ew, Father Blackwood, you would. I was like, oh, the Dark Lord is so much grosser. And apparently shares the same ideals of like, probably he's thinking like pure bloodline or something. But so it's one thing if he had her as a daughter, right? And he just wanted her to rule by his side. But he wants her as his child bride. They kind of skim over that because it is too realistically gross. But he wanted to have her, like, as his. Ew. Gross. And I want to point something out. This makes a little bit, this is my one tiny plot hole. How is Sabrina able to give up all her magic and then be immortal if she's not technically half mortal, we learned? If anything, she's half angel. And then this is another point I have to be made, or want to just bring up, because it's just like an idea I had. So they bring up the idea that because, and Hilda basically confirms that he isn't telling lies, that this did happen. There's an idea that Sabrina represents the idea of perversing the Holy Trinity by existing and the way she came into existence. And that's true. I mean, you get it. It's gross. And sometimes, I don't know if this was implied, but I think it kind of was, the idea that maybe Sabrina has all this power because she is fulfilling this prophecy. That's what happens. But then I thought about it deeper. So a personal love of mine, or interest I have, is this idea that got started when I was like really into researching Keith Haring back in the day. He's an artist. You should look him up. You've most definitely seen his animated shorts as a child for Nickelodeon. Yes, he used to do a little bit of these animated shorts. He did a bunch of other cool shit. He was a really cool guy. He was a really nice, cool guy. And he was obsessed with the idea that if you repeat an image enough, it will gain importance. So he would draw these little figures, the figures he came to later be known for, and he would put them all over subways and train cars, and he felt that if you did it often enough, you're kind of talking to people's subliminal mind or subconscious. Not unlike witchcraft in a way, and a lot of other things that people use to their advantage and disadvantage sometimes, because people sometimes say that if you look at too much social media, you're subconsciously taking in the negative energy and that like hurts you. So he was obsessed with this idea. I don't remember if he was inspired by this, but you could also compare it to Andy Warhol. Now, people just like to, and I'm not going to go into it, but I have a lot of pet peeves with the art world. People like to have this bullshit idea that, oh, they were just really famous all along, and you don't have it, and they do, and like, if you're just not famous immediately, then therefore you're not then you just don't have what it takes. That's always the, like, really dumb belief of a lot of my peers and professionals I've talked to, which is, like, absolutely insane, because someone had to start somewhere. I've always said that about Keith Haring. I was like, yes, but would you like Keith Haring's art if he wasn't Keith Haring? And people would always say to me, well, he's Keith Haring. And I was like, yeah, but at one point, he was a kid at SVA who was just making art like anyone else. And honestly, one of the reasons why he blew up was because he was really big into the party scene, and he would meet a lot of rich people, and he would bring them back after the club to his studio, and so they started buying it because they, like, knew him, and he was really likable and nice. And he does have amazing art, but there's a lot of great artists that never make a living from what they're doing, so I'm just going to point that out there. So anyways, Andy Warhol. People think that he just kind of popped up out of nowhere, and that he was just always a genius and blah, blah, blah. Actually, he was one of the most sought after New York City's, how do you describe it? Like graphic designer. He would make all the artwork for the magazine covers or just art they needed for like an article. He was incredibly skilled at what he did, and he understood an art form that hadn't been recognized yet, which is the ability to sell an idea, because that's essentially what art is, but ultimately people do it, they're just more focused on like the way they're going to express it or how original it really is. But in reality, like graphic designing, you have to translate that idea very clearly. It's got to lure people in. So you got to not only have them understand what you're saying, it's got to be universal, and you've got to, at the end of it, have them wanting it whether they wanted it in the beginning or not. That is magic within itself as ability. So he already had this skill down, right? And when he went into the art world, he was able to transfer that idea and say, what is it? Isn't that in itself magic? Again, talking about the idea of repeating an image, giving it importance, kind of dissecting what we see as just kind of traditional in the background idea of just like a bunch of cans of soup, and saying, well, if I take away the lines, make it a little more abstract, aren't the shapes nice? Aren't they pleasing? Don't you feel drawn to it? Don't you question why you're drawn to it? Maybe if I repeat it enough, you'll see its importance if I put it in a canvas. So do you see what I'm saying? It's giving this importance. And that's the main idea I'm trying to get to, is that there's an importance by just talking about it a lot. But that doesn't always mean there's full-on supernatural magic. Like, Lucifer gained his horrible image, so it would make sense that if you had an image of him in like his form, it would have some sort of magnitude or magic around it, especially in the place he literally fell. That makes sense. There's a lot of actual direct connections. But the idea of perversing the Holy Trinity is just a symbol. It hasn't actually happened yet, so why would this one thing happen? We don't even know how that prophecy came to be. He could have just chosen it. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this was just an idea it had. It hadn't come to fruition yet, so it's just an idea. So therefore, my long statement that I'm basically making is that Sabrina wasn't powerful because she represented anything. She was powerful because she was half of a fucking witch, half of an angel. That's what Morning Lucifer is. He is an angel. He's incredibly powerful. So with these two heightened supernatural abilities, it would make sense by default she would just have a more amped up, juiced ability. And her dad did say, the Dark Lord did say that he gave her even more power, not only just by birthing her, but I'm sure he like bestowed even more gifts upon her. So that's just like an argument I'm making if anyone wants to talk about that like little conspiracy or idea of like Sabrina and her power and what that represents. I still feel weird about the whole like half mortal thing not technically being true. That's fine, but like if they bring that up again, they need to come up with like a better, like they've already created like kind of a plot hole for themselves if they don't properly finish that idea off. So that's fine. It doesn't really matter. That's just like a little nitpick. So she finds out. So Sabrina finds out she's the Dark Lord as her father, and this is the big one, that Nick Scratch was compelled to by the Dark Lord to basically seduce her. I mean, this whole time I was like, I don't know why people keep saying, can you not trust him? Are they trying to hint at him being the Dark Lord? I don't feel like he's the Dark Lord. I was technically right, but they were technically right. He was being coerced by the Dark Lord. And I just could not even imagine the betrayal she felt. It's like, is no one to be trusted, because even though she's made up with her friends, there was a hot second where they were turning their backs on her. She's had her backs turned on by, remember, Zelda was more standing up for Father Blackwood for a time. Literally, Ambrose, this person she would confide into even before her aunts. Like, I would say the only one that she could remotely trust is probably Hilda. But the point is, this was a huge betrayal. Now, I love her reaction. She spit in his face. Well done, Queen. But I also loved just a little, at least it gives some credibility to Nick, because it doesn't take away what he did. I mean, everyone says it. If the Dark Lord compels you, you can't really fucking say no. I mean, we saw the repercussions of what happened when Lilith even tried to say no and leave. And poor Adam, R.I.P. Adam, Adam's head. Nick ends up admitting to Sabrina, like, listen, girl, I just want you to know that when I approached you initially, that really was me. I really was into you. But I was directly coerced by the Dark Lord to go even further and become even closer to you. And I really did sincerely fall in love. I'm surprised the Dark Lord even allowed him to say that. I think he really his ego truly gets in the way how he underestimates how much that could mean to someone. Because it does mean something to Sabrina in the end. In the way she does take that in and forgives him in a way and connects to the idea that their love and their connection and relationship above anything else was sincere, was real. I do believe everything he said and did was for her benefit because he really was rooting for her. Because think about it, a lot of the things he did, he even tried to stop her from finishing the last act that would open the Dark Lord to return to his angelic form and come to Earth. He tried to stop that. That would have been against the Dark Lord's wishes. I just want to point that out. Now we have a couple trial and errors, you could call it, of them trying to get to the Dark Lord. First, they get some advice from Miss Wardwell. By the way, I love the way she introduces her motivation. She tries to act as if she's just like purely on Sabrina's team, and Sabrina's like, "Girl, okay, I keep compulsing myself not to say this, but there's a Danny Gonzalez YouTube video, and he's making fun of Billion Surprise, a weird YouTube channel for it's like an animated YouTube channel for children. There's so many weird references in one. Anyways, he made a song and it's fucking hilarious. And there's a point where he's singing and he goes, "Telling lies, Papa," because it's a line from the cute children's show. Anyway, so when they keep saying "telling lies," I just keep singing the song in my head. I have to share that. So if I ever say "telling lies, Papa," please understand the reference that I'm not just weirdly saying that. They end up, they saying, "Telling lies, Papa," and Lilith has the best line ever when she's just like, "I want the crown and throne. I've worked for them, I've earned them, I want them, they're mine." And Sabrina's like, well, at least she's honest. And honestly, this could not be more to their benefit, but we'll get to that at the very end when we wrap up everything. So she wants it, she wants to help them, and she gives them, interestingly enough, his angel wings never heal. I think that's a really cool, mystical problem to have. Love that little written in thing. They try to do this thing where they distract him with ego. They stab his angel wings. They try to get him, and it doesn't initially work. And Miss Wardwell's quick to kind of be like, "Oh, I guess this is just what it is. This is how it is." That's what made me be okay with her back and forth in this. I never felt like she ultimately wanted to go back to the Dark Lord or she was betraying anyone again. In fact, in a weird way, she's been on Sabrina's side for a couple episodes now. She's only been mad at Sabrina at the idea that she would be the one she was more mad at the Dark Lord than Sabrina is what I'm trying to say. But she only is going back and forth because what can she do? She's trying to take him down. Now, the beautiful thing is she's quote-unquote plucky to the very end, and she ends up getting inspired by Roz, Harvey, and Theo. I love it. The Dark Lord's basically like, listen, gather my main waifu, gather my demons coming out of the gate, bring them here. We're going to have a party, which, by the way, I'm like, how the hell are you going to have a party? I do not imagine these demons are anything other than beastly and animalistic. How are you going to get them to put on a little tuxedo? I mean, think of this now. The evil witch of the West, those cute little monkeys with the wings. Can you imagine them in a little tuxedo and not trying to eat someone's brains out of their head? When this happens and she goes to approach the gates of hell, she has a little surprise in store. So remember when we got these little beautiful moments in the tarot card reading? By the way, love this season. Even the filler episode had purpose. So Roz, first of all, is a badass and has started to learn to work with and compel her cunning to her advantage. Which, by the way, love that. Didn't even think of that. It's like, oh yeah, it's kind of like a superpower. In every superpower situation, people learn to master that and expand that idea, which makes me wonder how far Roz's abilities will go, because we did see some form of it. So one, we could see that she could turn on the cunning when she wanted and get specific answers, but we also learned she can transfer it. That's a really important thing. Let's put it this way: if she sees your boyfriend cheating on you in the future and you're like, you're lying. She could send that little image to your head and be like, I wasn't lying. I'm so sorry. I've just seen this. Anyways, in the tarot card episode, Harvey ended up having this small conversation. And I said, isn't that weird that they talked about the idea of drawing being somehow associated with binding these creatures? I thought that was interesting because that is the kind of thought process of a lunatic. And what I mean by that is, what would make you think that other than the fact that you're trying to grapple such a big idea of seeing these horrible images and you like drawing? It would make sense that you would try to use it as a coping mechanism. What on earth would your drawing actually have to do with successfully binding something that is so all-powerful and traumatizing, may I add? But this is where it gets really cool. Roz basically sees where the gates of hell is, and then she's able to see these quote-unquote sigils and figure out that these things that she sees, these locks, are these turning things are actually in forms locks. They're powerful sigils that have abilities. By the way, if you remember in the episode where Nick Scratch and Sabrina were talking, they were in competition to be top boy, I talked all about sigils at length, so you remember that conversation and what they were. And if you remember, sigils were initially about angels and devils' names or demons' names, and it's all about controlling them. This is how they originally originated before they got into chaos magic, which is a thing which the sigils now have a different use and are more to the benefit of people for whatever they want to accomplish as like another form of magic. So again, the episode's up on Patreon now, so you can come learn my fun witchy lesson. Anyway, they see that the sigils are a form of locks, and Roz is able to transfer these images into Harvey's head. Harvey makes this connection because of what he learned with the tarot card reading. Again, I still did not get this answered, and I kind of love that back and forth. Miss Wardwell, after that tarot card lesson, kind of made it seem like she infected or tortured in some weird way Sabrina and her friends and family, but in reality, she gave a ton of helpful advice. And I still don't know if she knows she did, or she was planting little seeds and she was aware, she was kind of having backup plans. And Roz transfers the images to Harvey's head, and he starts drawing like a lunatic, and it makes enough of these sigil images of paper around the gate. By the way, you better lock that up, because all you have to do is blow away the pieces of paper and the gates are opened again. But the gates are successfully being held back. By the way, we get one hot, scary moment when Theo was grabbed. I did not like that. I was like, leave him alone. But Theo was grabbed for a hot second. And when Miss Wardwell comes, instead of her trying to thwart this or stop this is how interesting she is truly as a mother of demons. You think she would want to help her little babies. But she ends up going to Sabrina, teleporting. By the way, I love at this point when the mortals get teleported to the witchy world, they're not like, whoa, we got teleported for the first time. This is crazy. They're like, too much shit's going on. We don't have time to talk about this. They end up saying, maybe there is still a chance that we could get him. Because if the gates of hell, something that should, I mean, even Miss Wardwell's like, I couldn't stop it. If these humans were able to stop it, we have an advantage. He doesn't know that, and he doesn't have his hordes to act as an army to create even more chaos and make it even harder to take him down. Do you have any plans? Let's try to do this. And initially, Sabrina's got a great idea. Her dad's Arnomicon, I think it was called, or something like that. He's basically his giant, like, puzzle piece that was used to hold Batty Bat. That was a demon that, like, this cage can hold any demon. So maybe it can hold the Dark Lord. It was a great idea. And this is when we introduced the first, I mean, you could say it's not the first, but this was a huge red flag for me. This is when we introduced the song. Because Sabrina needs to appear as if she's appeasing the Dark Lord. Everything's going to his plans. Everything's working to his advantage so they can get the jump on him. They also need him to think that there's a bunch of people in the room. So they create a glamour spell when in reality it's just Sabrina's family and her mortal friends. Everything else is just a glamour, an effect. So that he thinks he has his crew on his side when in reality the only people there are the people that are supporting Sabrina. And this is when we get this song. When there was a song, And there, it's, you know, it started singing. My first response was, no, 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 no songs. Because one of the, like, downward spirals of Riverdale, and I'm just going to keep bringing that up, is gangs and songs, musical episodes. They keep making musical episodes that no one fucking wants or gives a shit about. They're not good songs, may I point out. And there's just a lot of no going on. Well, again, because okay, so this is my belief system. I believe Roberto, the man who wrote, started, created, and whatever, Riverdale, and then moved over to Chilling Adventures, I think he's fully committed to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Because the first season was amazing of Riverdale. We all loved it. We thought it was fun, a little bit of a dull ending, but overall fun. And then it went to shit right away in the second season. And I don't think he was really involved with it at that time. He started working on Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And he's been very involved with season 1 and season 2. And you can see it. He's a great writer. He's got great ideas. He did the research. He gives a shit about what he's talking about. And I couldn't be happier. So when they had a song, it had a purpose. It wasn't just a dumb musical number for no fucking reason. If they have an episode, I will be pissed. Roberto, I'm going to tweet you personally. I'm just saying. But instead, this song had a purpose. Apparently the Dark Lord's a little more flamboyant. He likes a show. He likes a spectacle. It makes sense there would be a cute little song. 2, Kiernan can fucking sing. They did an amazing job with her voice, the harmonies, the song was great. I loved the way it looked. And 3, it was short. It got to the point. It was beautiful. When I stepped away from the knowing, it was objectively fun. And before you could be like, fuck, how long is this going on for? It quickly just moved on and was like, okay, we're done now. We're dancing now, Dad. By the way, love when she called him Dad. And he was like, not here. I'm like, ew. The whole daddy thing has a creepier, kinkier connotation. And also, by the way, I've never been for that. When everyone went through that phase of calling everyone daddy and zaddy, I'm literally screaming from the sideline stadium theaters going, what is wrong with all of you? Anyway, Sabrina is dancing with him and distracting him with flattery of how great everything is. He's not recognizing that the people are all whispering an incantation. And by the time he notices, it's too late, and they successfully trap him in the, again, I don't remember if I'm saying this correctly, Arcanomicon? And it works for a hot second until unfortunately it doesn't. I mean, it's the motherfucking Dark Lord. It makes sense that it would not hold him for very long. So they, by the way, we didn't talk about this yet because I have a feeling angels are going to pop up again. Remember those angels that were there? I wonder if they would recognize Lucifer as their brother. Because in Supernatural, it was like the archangels. If you don't know Supernatural, I hope I'm not spoiling this for you. But the archangels are like the top brothers, the top sons of God. And technically, he really considers them more his children in a weird way. But then the other angels, the sub-level angels, are technically also his children. And the archangels do call each other brother and sister because that's what they're technically... They all share the same dad. Does this make sense? Okay. In that moment, though, the Dark Lord comes out of his cage, and Lilith does not hesitate. I'm so proud of her. She's a strong, independent woman, and she does not... Like, I think she's ballsy at this moment, because when she so directly goes against him and grabs his throat, if she had let go for even a fucking second, I don't think he would ever have forgiven her and would have tortured her on end. And let's just say I'm really happy that that worked out in her favor. It is revealed, though, that the Necronomicon is based on the perfect cage, the human body. Which is kind of interesting, because that could be a throwaway line of just like, oh, so that's just how it is in the lore, we're just saying that. But in reality, like, think about what has to function to keep all of our organs and muscles both working together, but staying inside. It's more than just skin. It's how everything relates to each other. So if you really were to break down what's going on mathematically, that is a good argument. And that's something I really appreciate in Sabrina, is the conversation about the math formulas of magic. I really love that type of shit. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people love, like, magicians and shit, that sciencey part of it, too. When Lilith grabs the Dark Lord, holding him by his throat, they bring this up again. And Nick Scratch volunteers, because, again, he wants to make it up to his boo, that he's like, I will hold him within myself. And he brings the Dark Lord within him. And for a hot second, we see Nick scratch, beastly with red eyes. Ooh, Sabrina did always like a bad boy. And before he can really, respond and get angry as the Dark Lord, it would have been interesting in that moment if he started growing horns. You know what I mean? Like his beastly personality truly coming out again through Nick. That would have been fun. But I think it's Prudence puts a sleeping spell on him. Genius. Great way of bringing him back, because how are you going to truly, not only, first of all, bind him in that cage? That makes sense that he's bound and he's unable, but he could just use Nick theoretically as a puppet because he's so strong. The best way to keep him out is have him not even be able to be conscious to bring him out, because there's no way in hell you're going to be able to lock him up in chains and special bars. That, you know what I mean? That clearly didn't work the first time he's out. I mean, he used to regularly go out. He could leave hell whenever he wanted. I just want to point that out. This is when we come to our beautiful ending. I did not know how they were going to end it this season, and I gotta tell you, I loved it. I loved it with the song, the imagery, kind of how everything gets tied in a bow. Oh, it's beautiful. Lilith and the gang, including Nick Scratch / the Dark Lord's body, get together and they all go down to the gates of hell because she's going to return to hell. She's been promised to be Queen of Hell, and they give it to her. Sabrina, it's a cute little moment of, Miss Wardwell or Lilith being like, oh, by the way, can I have my crown? Sabrina puts her crown on her head, and she says, I bestow upon you 2 gifts. She gives her a kiss on the head, and she's like, I will give you all your witch abilities back. Which I'm like, damn straight. I mean, I'm sorry, Sabrina. You are a lovely person, as is, but I want to see those little twirly spells with changing clothes and fun shit like that. And she gives her magic powers back, and she says, I have another gift for you. And the fun little second surprise is that she gave her favorite teacher back. We get actual Miss Wardwell back, which I feel conflicted by, because no offense to Wardwell, but I'm all about Lilith now. So I'm like, no, don't send Lilith away. Lilith takes the Dark Lord down to hell with her, wearing her crown and everything. So she is the now new Queen of Hell. And can I be honest with you? I am all for it. And there's a lot of good reasons why she makes a better Queen of Hell than, of course more than the Dark Lord, but I think, I don't see repercussions is what I'm trying to say for her becoming the Queen of Hell. And we're going to get to that in one moment. Zelda is now the new High Priestess, not only by marriage, but honestly, it makes sense. Who else would be better for the job? I'm sure some people might try to compete with her for that. That might be a little bit of drama. But she's always had witches and warlocks, the best intentions for everyone. She wants equality. She wants the best for them. She loves them all. And now that she's seen the true goal and face of the Dark Lord, she is no longer, for that. And she will lead them in the right light. I like that she even has a moment of maybe being like, maybe we should be the, worship Lilith, Church of Lilith, which I was like, girl, I know you're just dabbling with that idea, but you totally fucking should. Now, why I say all of those things is because Lilith, let's be real here. Lilith, first of all, is a survivor. There's a lot of ideal attributes about her that show what it means to be strong and be a witch. So that's already a cool figure because, in reality, the Dark Lord was kind of a coward. He got kicked out of heaven by his own dad. He had a tantrum, tore off his wings, or maybe his dad did. I'm not quite sure what the lore is there. And then he just became a nasty, controlling person only to get what he wanted, and that was to control everyone. Why would we idealize that? Meanwhile, this lady, this is where it gets really cool. Her, if you want to rewrite their version of the Bible, this is where the story, normally the reason why people love the Bible, amongst many reasons, is its stories. Its stories are pretty cool. I think this is the OG and ultimate version of a story. That she would have to suffer under a now new false god. They call the other guy the false god, but technically now the Dark Lord is also a false god. So she had to suffer underneath him, and somehow she still prevailed. She still came out on top. And this is where it gets beautiful. Towards this end of this last episode, she was on Sabrina's side. Sabrina even offered her, was suggesting that Lilith would be a better queen than her. And I thought, and Lilith was really touched by that and excited by that idea. So she could objectively see whose team she should really be on and who she should be mad at. So she's a reasonable thinker despite all the trauma she's been through. She understands what trauma's like. So when she says, she comes to you in a godly like way and says, "Oh, my child, you've suffered," and bestows some miracle upon them, the way many like gods and angelic forms do, you would say, "Girl knows what I've been through. She understands what I've been through." I mean, she'd be like the perfect goddess to prey upon when you're like, "My boyfriend's being such an abusive jerk." She'd show up in a second. She's like, "You rang?" So she's been through all that shit. But then, instead of it being like a Jesus moment where like, so like God had Jesus and they were on each other's team, and then unfortunately he died because people, like, didn't want the truth. I can't remember. Whatever. He died. What I'm trying to say is they were on each other's team. She kind of both saved the prophet because they were truly in the pursuit of truth. So she really represents that idea of truth. But also, the prophet ended up turning against the false god and rising her up. So it was like a different sort of prophecy, which makes it even cooler that would come out of left field when, for a while in the book, you're rooting for him. Isn't that such a cool story and idea to get back behind? Not only just right now in watching Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but like imagine you're a little witch or warlock. So she represents truth. She's really smart. She's gone through shit. And this is the big reason why you should celebrate her. So everyone was down with the Dark Lord, but they understood that he had more sinister intentions, that you don't want to fuck with him. You do what he asks you to. So there's this weird praising of him, but being afraid of him. And that made sense, but in the end, it also doesn't make sense in a lot of crazy situations. I didn't think that was poor writing. I think that really went along with a lot of people who are in crazy, belief systems that can happen. People find themselves in those situations. So now, if they did worship Lilith, she does not have any intentions to come up on Earth. Like, that was like devastating, I'm sure, when all the witches and warlocks either find out now or have found out that their Dark Lord that they once praised was actually his goal was to enslave everyone, including these people he falsely promised the truth and powers and all of this stuff. And that's upsetting and bullshit. You don't worship that guy anymore, especially now that you know he's gone and you're free to worship. You're not doing it out of fear. Lilith was like, "Honey, I couldn't give two shits about mortals, witches, none of you. I just want to be a queen. And like, my babies love me. I'm the mother of demons. I'm just going to go down to heaven. I'm going to have a fun old time watching my ex, basically enslaved. I'm sure the demons are going to be so pumped that she's now queen because I'm sure she was a lot nicer to her babies than he was. So it's kind of ideal. Like, she's going to basically run a place without any, anything terrible happening to these people up on Earth, so that benefits everyone, witches, warlocks, and mortals. But also, remember how when witches die, they go to hell? Well, I'm sure that's still going to happen, but now when they go to hell, they truly will get what is promised of them. They will live in a paradise in hell. I'm sure she will not be torturing all of them for the fun of it. I don't really get the idea that she loves doing that. I think she was going to have fun torturing the baddies, the people that were not good people. I'm sure she's going to have a fun time doing that. But I think she'll be like, "You were a witch, you worshipped me, come to the red carpet." Just ignore all the screaming and the pitchforking and the fires and the clawing demons. Come right this way to the VIP room. So a lot of benefits to worshiping Lilith. And also, I just can't say this enough. I'm really happy she got the happy ending she fucking deserved. And I kind of love that Sabrina gave it to her and she didn't fight Sabrina the whole way and that she really ended up being on her side. And that Sabrina even asked her, "Why did you believe in him?" And she gave a great reason. She was like, "He was kind at first." A lot of people think that when people are in abusive relationships, that those people are somehow dumb or they asked for it or why don't they leave? And it's like, honey, it did not start out that way. I mean, some people are in a relationship with others for like 5 years before the guy even ever does something physical to them. Or it's like a slow thing that's verbal. So don't be so naive to think that it's just black and white. There's a lot of gray lines when it comes to that area. So what did I go over? Lilith was the new queen. Zelda's the priestess. Oh, and the ending with the mortals, aka Harvey, Roz, and Theo, and Sabrina. I fucking love that because up till now, they've kind of gone back and forth just a little bit, nothing too extreme, but I love them together as a group. And we haven't gotten to see a lot of that this season. I love her response when she was like, well, because you guys stopped the gates of hell, technically without my help at all. Like, she didn't do anything. She's like, wow, you're really capable. I don't think I need to worry about you anymore and protect you. Which is a key and underutilized phrase because if we look back at season 1, a lot of the shit that accidentally made everybody's life worse was because Sabrina was trying to do the right thing and get involved. Now that she doesn't have to do that anymore and she trusts her friend's independence, she'll do a lot less harm and allow things to work out as they need to work out. I think she's really learned that lesson that sometimes people just need to go through pain or go through what they need to go through. And you can't always give it a quick, easy fix because sometimes the hard way is the best way. So she's on their side and they understand their own capabilities, want to be involved. They're getting stronger as a group. But the biggest thing is they're kind of done being ignorant and just wanting to go back to their mortal lives. They're kind of in it now. They're fully Buffy the Vampire Slayer and they're on her side. They are with her. And this is a huge dynamic. Everyone's cool with each other. Like Sabrina's not trying to get back with Harvey, hasn't for some time. And so everything's cool in the group. She's fine with Harvey and Roz being together. That's all been discussed. Everyone's cool with one another. They're all okay with each other's mystical or non-mystical abilities. And I'm totally down with it. But, my one little tiny, itty bitty beef, my little itty bitty small, is when Sabrina ends it and says, let's go down to the gates of hell and save my boyfriend. I was like, are you fucking kidding me, Sabrina? After all this praise I've given you, how much you've learned with your group, everything. Are you fucking kidding me? Again, I probably am going to be proven wrong because at this point I've pointed out maybe 10 different times I was worried this show was going to let me down and they kept not letting me down. So as long as they keep Roberto very involved into the 3rd season, it's gonna turn out okay. But okay, so Sabrina, here's the thing. I know you made up with your boyfriend Nick, and to be fair, I am on his side. Like, he was coerced by the Dark Lord, but he really was in love with you. All that stuff was true. So your love is not unvalid, is what I want to say. But here's the thing. You've been dating him, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months. And like I've said, from personal experience, I know what it's like to be that in love. Your love is real. It doesn't mean it's less real because it's been 4 or 5 months. But what I'm trying to say is, maybe you should let this one go. You were there. You saw how hard it was to take down the Dark Lord, Sabrina. I'm talking to you. It was a miracle that you were even able to get him into Nick. Like, suspend him. I mean, Miss Wardwell, motherfucking Lilith. By the way, this is a side note. Did you not love when everybody was defending themselves against Lilith and they had their little powers up and they were building up a wall? The second she's like, I'm Lilith, they put down those walls so quickly. And again, this is what I'm saying for another advocate of why Queen Lilith is like the way to go and they should celebrate her. As soon as they put down their walls, they weren't in fear of her. They were like, kind of fangirling a little bit, like, oh my god, it's Lilith, we love you, we're your biggest fans, like Ambrose, everyone included. But it was already hard for somebody that skilled, that aged, in their abilities, to withstand him and hold him. Are you really gonna fucking rock the boat? Are you really not afraid of the consequences now that he knows for sure there is no submitting on your end? You couldn't even trick him with the false flattery is what I'm trying to say. So I'm sitting here being like, I don't know if I like this plot line. I don't know if I like this whole idea. And I also want to be like, Sabrina, just fucking let it go. It's a miracle your friends are alive. And I wonder if they'll carry off that exact moment and if everyone else will say the same thing that I'm saying. And everyone will be like, Sabrina, we love you, but like we're gonna have to have a conversation about you and trying to get your boyfriend back. I'm sure Prudence will be like, girl, are you serious? Do not do that. I'm sure Prudence will be for it. But last note, did you not love how they ended Prudence? She finally snapped out of it. She's back to the girl we once loved, and they ended it Blade style. I was like, oh my god, this is totally an homage to Blade. I love it. By the way, I've done Blade. You are welcome to go check it out. It's one of my very first episodes. I'm quite a novice in it. We don't even have music at that time in the episode. But Blade, love Blade. Great movie. They have Prudence and Ambrose with these long kind of samurai swords on their back. And I like that the two of them are like, we're gonna go after him now. We're gonna hunt him together. I like that they see the babies as innocent because they are innocent. We're gonna go make sure they're okay. I'm sure Prudence will be like, hell yeah, I'm gonna take care of you with my weird sisters. And she's gonna go protect them and make sure they're all right. But ultimately, we're gonna cut his motherfucking head off, as we saw her do with the statue. Also, I just like that they're together now, that whatever they are, I don't care what they are, I just like that they're together, they're great, they really are a great reflection off each other with their crazy enunciation and the way they like to handle problems and their openness to the good and the bad. And ultimately, they're both really skilled for their age, and, I mean, technically Ambrose is a lot older than her. Oh, I just realized, she likes an older boy. Wait a minute, I just realized it's weird that Ambrose... Oh, wait, no, he was like a professor at the school. Okay, I was going to say, because even though he looks like he's 17, he's really like 170. I just want to say that I'm really fucking excited for season 3. I had my doubts at the end of season 1 because it was almost too good to be true. But with season 2, it was really fucking good. It was so good. They kept building off the witchy lore and how their world works. They didn't skimp on the magic. They need to make Salem talk. I'm just going to point that out. They're not utilizing Salem enough. I think he could be a fun extra side character. I'm excited to see where everyone goes. I love how they wrapped up Lilith's arc. I love the whole, where they went with even just the Dark Lord himself. Like, he's not quite gone, but that ultimate idea of Sabrina signing her name in the book has kind of been fulfilled and realized, but I don't feel like less excited for the future. And even though I disagree and kind of feel a little worried about her just going after Nick and if that's going to be a tedious plot line, I've been proven time and time again not to doubt this show. So I'm just gonna kind of relax a little bit and let things play out. But the second this show betrays me, I am gonna have some words with it. But overall, guys, I want to know what your thoughts are on it. I have an email and a Twitter in the link below. Please feel free to let me know what your thoughts are, because I really love this show. And if you love talking about witchcraft and that type of stuff as much as I do, I have a secret podcast episode up on the Patreon right now as we speak. Guys, don't forget to subscribe. I love you in the most platonic way possible. Have a beautiful day.